There's a moment when you realize nothing extraordinary is required anymore. Not because life has become small, not because something is missing, but because what's here is already enough to live from. This episode is about that realization, about what happens when you stop looking for significance and begin trusting the ordinary moments that make up your days. Earlier in this journey, there may have been a sense that something meaningful would announce itself. A clear shift, a noticeable difference, a feeling that said, "This is it." That expectation was understandable. Change often feels like it should be obvious. But what actually happens here is much quieter. Life doesn't reorganize itself dramatically. It continues. And somewhere in that continuation, you stop waiting for something more. Trusting the ordinary doesn't feel like insight. It feels like relaxation. The kind that comes when you stop scanning for what's missing and notice what's already present. Ordinary moments used to feel like placeholders, time between meaningful events, something to move through on the way to something else. Now, those same moments don't feel like waiting rooms. They're just moments, and they're enough. This shows up in simple ways: making a meal, running an errand, listening to someone talk without needing to respond immediately. Nothing special is happening, and nothing needs to. Earlier, there may have been a subtle pressure to make moments count, to extract meaning, to notice something important, to stay aware of awareness. Now, that pressure has softened. You're not trying to use the moment. You're living it. Trusting the ordinary also changes how you relate to boredom. Boredom doesn't signal a problem anymore. It's just a lack of stimulation. It comes and goes. You don't rush to fill it. You don't judge it. You let it pass like any other experience. This doesn't mean life becomes dull. It means life stops needing to entertain you in order to feel real. Another subtle change is how presence feels. Earlier, presence might have felt noticeable, something you could point to. Now, presence isn't highlighted. It's background. You're not in presence. You're just here. Trusting the ordinary also means trusting your own rhythms. Some days are active. Some are slow. You don't try to balance them. You let each day be what it is. There's no sense that something is off if a day doesn't feel productive or meaningful. This stage often brings relief from self-evaluation. You're no longer measuring how well you're living. You're not checking whether you're doing it right. You're simply responding to what needs attention. Work changes here too, not in what you do, but in how it's carried. Tasks are handled without the extra layer of self-definition. You do what needs to be done, and when it's done, you move on. This doesn't remove effort. It removes friction. Effort is applied where it belongs, to the task itself, not inwardly, not toward managing experience. Trusting the ordinary also changes how emotions are met. Emotions don't need to teach anything. They don't need to lead somewhere. They're felt, and then they move. Even strong emotions don't linger as long when they're not treated as messages. This doesn't mean emotions are ignored. It means they're not elevated. They're part of life, not signposts. Earlier, there may have been a tendency to read meaning into emotional shifts, to wonder what they indicated. Now, you feel what you feel and let it be enough. Trusting the ordinary also affects how you relate to others. You're less inclined to perform understanding. You don't try to say the right thing. You listen. You respond simply. You don't rush to improve the interaction. Connection becomes quieter, not distant, just unforced. You don't need conversations to go anywhere. They unfold as they unfold. This can feel unfamiliar in a world that values engagement and expression. But there's honesty in simplicity. You don't need to add anything to be present. Another change is how memory is held. The past doesn't need to be revisited to confirm who you are. It's there when needed. Otherwise, it stays quiet. The future, too, loses some of its pull. Plans still exist. Responsibilities remain. But the future doesn't dominate attention. You don't live in preparation mode. Trusting the ordinary also means trusting yourself to handle what arises. You don't need to anticipate everything. You've seen yourself respond again and again. That familiarity becomes confidence, not loud confidence, quiet confidence. This stage doesn't feel like certainty. It feels like adequacy. You don't need to know what's coming to trust that you'll meet it. One of the most noticeable shifts is how little explanation is required. You don't feel compelled to narrate your life. You don't need to make sense of every change. Things happen. You respond. Life continues. This can feel anticlimactic if you expected something more defined, but it's also deeply stabilizing. You're no longer looking outside the moment for reassurance. Trusting the ordinary doesn't make life predictable. It makes it workable. You don't resist uncertainty. You move with it. You may notice that the desire to share insights has softened. Not because you have nothing to say, but because life doesn't need commentary. When you speak, it's from where you are, not from an idea about where you should be. This stage often goes unnoticed. There's no marker, no transition, just a sense, over time, that things feel simpler. Not easier, simpler, less layered, less internal negotiation. You may notice that you trust silence more, not as something profound, just as space. Silence doesn't need to be filled. It doesn't need to mean anything. Trusting the ordinary also changes how you relate to change. Change no longer feels like disruption. It feels like movement. You don't brace against it. You adjust. This doesn't mean you don't care. It means care isn't fused with control. You care, and you allow life to move. This stage doesn't require vigilance. It doesn't require effort. It's not something you sustain. It's something you notice has already been happening. You may realize that you've been living this way for a while before you ever named it. And naming it isn't necessary. Trusting the ordinary is not a philosophy. It's not a belief. It's what remains when you stop asking for life to prove itself. You don't need to remember this. You don't need to apply it. If it resonates, you'll recognize it in your own moments. If it doesn't, nothing is missing. Life doesn't need to feel special to be lived fully, and you don't need to stand out to be here. If any of this feels familiar, you don't need to hold on to it. But if you'd like to stay connected, you're welcome to. Liking the video helps it reach others who may be quietly learning that ordinary life is enough. And if these reflections support you as you live without waiting for significance, you can subscribe, not to follow a path, but to keep the door open. And if someone you care about has been waiting for something more before allowing themselves to live fully, you're welcome to share this with them. Only if it feels natural. Sometimes the most honest trust is trusting the ordinary.